So, when I was asked to discuss about Hollywood and the advancements AI-wise, I have to say that as a father and, um, and a human being, my concerns outweigh what I think it's going to do in my field for now, until we can really program the robots to speak, and if it's going to happen at some point, that they emote. As you can clearly see, we're not in a position yet to substitute actors for robots, which is what a big portion of the strike that just occurred was about. To take particularly extras and computer generate their faces and put them on potentially robots, or even have robots somewhere down the road do the acting themselves. Will we ever see a day that happens? Probably. We probably will see that, and sooner than you think. But that's not where I'm frightened of. If someone would rather watch a robot that can sound like me, look like me, and works for less money than me, I would say from a business standpoint, that probably makes a lot of sense. It'll be when they can program them to truly emote. When the robot has enough programming in it. Well, let me tell you a story first. I was the Meryl Streep school of acting when I first started. I memorized every line, I memorized every inflection, I memorized everything I was going to do in that scene until about the second movie I did, when it said in the script, she says angrily as she slams it, and the actress went, "No, I don't want you to do that." And she said it really quietly. And she made a completely different choice than what was on the page and what was directed in the writing that you should do, which meant that all my reactions in building the scene were going to seem ridiculous. I was going to start to pick up the volume and stand over her and then screaming at her, and she chose to eat the whole performance and go, "I'm really upset with you, and I just don't understand why." And she got very emotional. And it changed the scene, and I realized in that moment, it's about reacting. It's not about acting. Unless it's Shakespeare and you owe a certain level of homage to the writing and how you're going to perform it, it's about reacting in what I do. Now, what am I going to do? Is a robot going to be able to react and adjust on the fly in a scene when someone starts crying? Not with the technology today. So I don't feel that threatened, which a lot of actors have said, "Oh my God, we're going to all be replaced." I am worried about what happens in Detroit. I am worried about what happens on assembly lines and what happens in factories if you're able to replace all those jobs with robots that can work and do a more efficient and less mistakes for less money. What do you do with all those jobs and all those people that won't work anymore? So there's a concern, and I'm much more concerned about the military applications of this. When you don't have, I remember there was a study done on the missile silo operators in NORAD, and that they did simulations, not telling them that this was a test. And they showed the bombs blowing up, like in the movie War Games, in Chicago, in New York, and the response was supposed to be immediate and swift. They were supposed to push the button and launch those rockets. Could you do that? As a human being, could you know that by pushing that button, you were going to take out half of downtown Moscow and kill millions and millions of people? So they simulated, and they saw how many people actually couldn't do it, even though they thought we were under attack. A robot can do that. A robot is not going to worry about, it's going to be programmed. So where my biggest concern falls, what happens when the wrong people start programming the robots? Who's going to be in charge in the regulation of those things? It is potentially really frightening to me at the power that may be put in to a non-humanoid that doesn't have the ability to emote. So I hope that we're very, very responsible as we grow leaps and bounds in this field right now. And we are careful to make sure that this technology does not fall into the wrong hands of people that could do great harm to us with a machine that has no conscience, a machine that doesn't know love or doesn't know any emotion at all. So that's a little scary to me. After performing just now with the robot, I don't feel as threatened as I did when I was on the plane coming here. I think I'm still going to work for the rest of my career, probably, and when it comes to robots taking over. And when they asked me to speak and they asked me to address some of these issues, I said, you know, I think all of this is at its infancy. My wife and I were talking about it yesterday and talking about it earlier today, and she's an attorney. And so she turned around and she said, yeah, I don't think it's going to apply as much to my field that you're going to see robots going into the courtroom or whatever. I don't think you're going to probably see that a lot. But she brought out some very interesting points to me about the processing of certain paperwork and how fast that can be done and how efficiently that can be done and how a document can be generated through AI now that would be much less money to have a robot do it than would have the countless hours that it would take a human being who's an attorney to go ahead and do all that work. And why wouldn't we want to pass that on? You know, would their company that she works for is a big, big law firm. And so would the company benefit? And she said, well, of course we would benefit because we wouldn't have to do this tedious work that could be done by a machine while we did the stuff that a machine can't do. And I never really looked at it that way. I looked at it as it's a machine doing what I think I'm locked into what humans do. And the fact of the matter is, it's changing now. It's going to forever change. And the evolution of this science now is at its infancy. Imagine when you look back 10 years ago or 20 years ago when we talked about this, what it's going to look like 20 years from now. What you will absolutely have in-house butler maid service where it's a fully automated robot programmed to the things that you want done. That's going to happen soon. And there's going to be many, many, many fields, waiters, waitresses, service-oriented places. What happens if they start to build them, which, like anything else they do, they'll start doing it faster, lighter, cheaper. And when that happens, will there be people that work in McDonald's anymore? Or will McDonald's hire a core of relatively inexpensive robots because by that time they can make them so cheap and there won't be any mistakes. You'll walk in and you'll speak into some type of microphone, and in the back will be, and the whole thing will be done by robots. That's coming. Absolutely, that's coming. Have you been to an auto factory in the last 10 years? I mean, half of the work that's being done in there now is being done by machines. It's all, and it moves on to the next piece, and the whole thing gets done. So I think this is a reality that's just going to get more and more common and become less expensive and more realistic for us as consumers at home and in the business place to be able to use. What's really exciting is how many people are going to be prepared to be the automators and the builders and the programmers as this starts to break out. You know, we all looked at the internet in 1985 and said, the inter what? You know, Google what? You know, laptop computers and look where it is now. So this will be no different than that. This will be exactly like that. The wave and the curve of people that will be qualified to keep up with the demand, you will see a huge lag. The value of those people that will know how to work these machines, will know how to program them, will know how to build them, they'll be invaluable. You won't be able to hire enough. But then we'll slowly start to train enough people because it becomes so common, and people will accept it, and people will learn to lean on it and need it. And when that happens, and it gets past wanting is one thing, but when they start to need it, when they start to need this innovation in their homes and in their lives and in their businesses, everyone will start doing it. Just like computer operators and the tech world blew up in the Silicon Valley and chips and all that stuff. Same thing's going to happen in this field. It'll be commonplace. You'll look back 25 years from now and go, yeah, my grandfather never even heard of a robot before. Because everyone's going to have one in some form in your home or at your business. That's just the way it's going to be. I thought it would be interesting if there were any questions to get some audience participation. If anyone has anything they'd like to ask in the last 5 minutes or so, I'd be happy. Don't all jump at once, please, or have the robot kick your ass. Please.
Strike is over, and how complete were the actors with what's going on? Were they completely satisfied, or is there a lot of loose ends still?
Yeah, I heard that I didn't vote on it. In the category that matters most, you know, the unions, particularly the Screen Actors Guild, really doesn't support actors that make a lot of money or have a very successful career. They're there for people who are extras, who are guest stars, who are people that really need that money and depend on that insurance and everything. So if you tell me that producers, who are the ones that are putting up the money and the owners in the studios, really need another way to screw actors out of more money than how much money they make, I used to say to myself, if they can pay me this amount of money to act in a movie, imagine how much money they're making. I mean, so it became known to me that the most valuable thing to do was to own the negative, was to be part of the ownership of the projects that I was doing, or produce them myself. Because the guys I was working for in Hollywood didn't know any more than I knew, for sure. And yet I would go in and direct them, write them, produce them, and act in them, and they'd walk away and make $30 million, and I made, you know, $100,000, you know, and I thought to myself, wow, $100,000, the son of a school teacher. That's a lot of money for what I do. I'm happy with that, until I saw how much money and realized how much money they were making. So the idea that you guys are all extras and this is a movie scene, and I'm gonna computer generate your face, and I'm gonna put it on the extras in the background of this scene, and not pay the poor guy that makes $75 a day to be an extra, and has made a career of that, and has a family and kids that are going to college and car payments. You're gonna screw him out of that money, really? You don't make enough money already? So I thought the deal that they accepted was BS. I didn't think it was really good. I think they got, you know, what they thought they could get out of it. But I think if they hung them up, you know, and the problem is that waiting game of how long can you hold out and not have any income? You know, for some actors, you can hang out a while, you know, but most no. You know, I think it's 1 in 2,500 actors. Think about this number again. 1 in 2,500 actors in Los Angeles is able to make a living just on his acting without having to subsidize their income with another occupation, waiting on tables, bartending, whatever it is. 1 in 2,500. So you got to figure there's 2,400, you know, 99 guys out there going, I can't stay on strike for another 2 months. I can't do it. And for them, you know, I'm happy to, you know, make a pretty good living doing what I do. But my heart goes out to those guys that are getting screwed. Now, I don't think you're going to see known actors with any kind of name value complain about too much about the AI experience until they start, you know, acting in movies and they're taking our likeness. So the contract and the thing that they're asking for is, if you're going to put George Clooney's face on a robot, are you going to pay George Clooney what you normally would pay him for a movie? Well, probably not, because he doesn't have to show up and act in the movie. But what are you going to pay him? And what their offer was like nothing. They wanted to pay him scale, and he is George Clooney. He's been doing this for a long time. And you're going to get away, once the technology is good enough, to have people think that it's George Clooney in the movie. And when we get the audio part, whether in the lips moving right and the emotion in the face, how would you know it wasn't him? You know, so right now you can tell that these are not actually human beings, but that's going to change. I'm sure it will change. So I thought the deal sucked myself, but you know, I guess they're going to pass it. Any more questions? Sir.
Brady Buckner with Financial Services Innovation Coalition. I'd like to know your opinion about what's going to happen to all of these workers that are going to be displaced, because usually when a new innovation comes about, it creates a lot of industry associated with it, but that's not going to happen now. So what do you think we should do to help all these people find jobs?
Well, I like to always look, and there's been a study of already about what some of those numbers are, and so I believe where I think you're going to get hurt really badly is in the Spanish and African American communities, where they in inner cities work quite a bit in the factory scenario. So you know, in particularly in the African American community, where, you know, let's face it, they got here and we did them wrong, you know, and we've held them back in many, many ways, and we've refused to level the playing field academically and in many other ways. So, you know, to take another hit with 35% of the African American community in inner cities works in automation, in factories, and you're going to sweep 35% of the jobs away from that entire body of people in this country. Wow, that's a big hit. That's a big hit. So to be responsible with it, I think what would be, if I was president or I was a legislator that had the power to make these kinds of decisions, I would say, if you're going to replace that body with a machine, you need to train that person on how to work on the machine or something in the field to help with the demand that's going to be necessary of having that many robots working. So what if we were to retrain these people? What if we were to make it so that having a robot replace them, which was more efficient and for less money, what's there something we could do to trade off with this person, particularly those people that have tenure? You know, people that have been, look, if you're 2 years in there and you're taking a job away from a newbie who's probably not going to stay there, you know, that's one thing. When you got a guy that's been there for 12 years and has a kid in college and you just got to take his job away, I think you owe that guy something. So I would like to see training in the field so that they have a job right there still at the factory.
Are you announcing your run for president?
You know, Alec played Trump for a long time on SNL. I don't know if I could beat that. Any other questions? In the back. I see a hand, I think. No? Just waving? Hi. Any more questions as we're running out of time? Oh, does that say plus? How many seconds on plus? Oh, I'm over. I like that. Plus 32. Let's just count for about a couple minutes. What do you think? Anybody else? Last question.
Quick question on
Yeah.
technology.
Tell
How do
me.
you see blockchain playing into this?
Wow. Well, now you just added 12 minutes onto my, no. So I worked hand in hand with the only government and only president, Nayib Bukele in El Salvador, who has switched over from the American dollar to Bitcoin. And I helped write directly my writing of the new legislation for the film business and the film initiative there. I've introduced the only company to El Salvador that takes 7 of the 10 most popular plastic bottles and turns them through the process with 0 emissions. Let me say that again to you. 0 emissions, and turns those plastic bottles into diesel fuel. So we're building the plant in southern El Salvador now. So I'm quite savvy to Brock, Pierce, and some of the other guys that are down there in the blockchain right now. My prediction, although I was reminded recently by someone who I know very, very well, I thought we were going to switch out of the American dollar and we were going to a coin. You don't think that could happen? That could happen. That could happen. If we're called in on enough of our loans and the right dice tumble at the right time in the next, and I mean before the election, you could see a fail on the American dollar where we go to a coin base where the United States government would have control of all of the money, and then they would pay you in this coin. If the American dollar fails, which we're struggling right now. So my prediction is, if there's a change in the presidency, I don't know that we'll see that happen, not in the next 4 years. If there isn't a change in the presidency, I'm not sure you're not going to see the US dollar finally just crumble. The dollar will be devalued so much that we will end up going to a coin-based economy in the United States. And that it? All right, anyone that disagrees with me, please don't swing at me when I walk off the stage. Thank you so much. God bless you.